What if I told you that America's most dangerous criminal mastermind once drove an armored car for minimum wage? March 15, 2020. Empty Miami streets stretched like abandoned movie sets. A single armored truck rolled through downtown corridors, past shuttered businesses and vacant parking lots. COVID-19 had turned one of America's busiest financial districts into a ghost town. Perfect timing for what would become criminal history. That driver, 34 years old, former Marine, working doubles just to cover rent, was about to steal $110 million from a Mexican cartel. Not next week. Not next month. In exactly 47 minutes. You know that feeling when you're stuck in a job that barely pays bills while watching rich people get richer? When you follow rules while others break them and profit. Most people live with that frustration their entire lives. Some people do something about it. Today, 5 years later, federal agents still hunt for him. Cartel assassins still search. Not because someone stole money. People steal money every day. Because someone took a minimum wage job and turned it into a criminal empire worth $50 million annually. Because someone proved that intelligence beats violence, strategy conquers strength, and patience destroys power. While you've been working your way up corporate ladders, this man built his own ladder, with stolen cartel money as construction material. His name was Damien Cross. Past tense, because that person no longer exists. What exists now is something far more dangerous, a ghost who learned how to become a king. Law enforcement calls his organization Cross Syndicate. International networks. Cryptocurrency exchanges. Shell companies across 3 countries. Private airfields. Legitimate charitable foundations that serve police families while laundering drug money. A criminal empire so sophisticated it makes traditional cartels look like street gangs. But it all started with one impossible decision on one empty Tuesday morning. When a conversation he wasn't supposed to hear changed everything. You've probably driven past armored cars hundreds of times without thinking twice. Just another part of daily background noise. Another working person doing another thankless job. What you didn't know, what nobody knew, is that sometimes those drivers are listening, learning, planning. Sometimes they're Marines with photographic memories who've spent 2 years mapping every financial crime in their city. Sometimes they're patient enough to wait for perfect moments. Smart enough to recognize when $100 million opportunities present themselves. If you're thinking this sounds impossible, good. That's exactly what everyone thought. Federal investigators, cartel leaders, security experts, everyone who's still searching for him today. If you're wondering how someone pulls off history's most audacious theft while building a criminal dynasty, stay with me. Because this story will change how you see ordinary people forever. If you're someone who hears a story like this and just scrolls away, don't. Hit subscribe now. Because stories like this won't wait forever, and neither will your curiosity. 2 years before that March morning, Damien Cross had been a different kind of invisible. Fresh out of military service, carrying skills nobody wanted to pay for. Intelligence analysis. Strategic planning. Pattern recognition that could spot enemy movements from satellite feeds. Talents worth millions in war zones. Worth nothing in civilian job markets. Titan Security Transport hired him for one reason. Clean driving record. No background checks on cognitive abilities. No interest in what Marines learned overseas. Just another body willing to drive heavy trucks through dangerous neighborhoods for barely above minimum wage. Miami's Brickell Avenue became his daily classroom. Gleaming towers housing currency exchanges that moved dirty money with corporate efficiency. Private banks where cartel accounts masqueraded as legitimate businesses. Jewelry stores that sold gold to clients who paid in cash bundles wrapped with cartel logos. Every morning, same route. Every afternoon, same stops. Currency exchanges. Private vaults. Exclusive dealerships. Watching fortunes flow through marble lobbies while earning $14 an hour plus overtime when lucky. But those Marine-trained eyes cataloged everything. Which businesses operated legitimate fronts? Which operated only fronts? How much cash moved daily? Who controlled movement patterns? When vulnerabilities appeared in security protocols? Oceanic Currency Exchange handled more dirty money than most small banks. Nikolai Petrov ran operations with military precision, coordinating transfers between cartel accounts and offshore holdings. Swiss timing. Zero tolerance for delays. Maximum efficiency for maximum profit. Damien loaded cash bundles that represented years of his salary in single transactions. Petrov treated him like furniture, useful for moving heavy objects, invisible otherwise. Perfect camouflage for learning business operations from ground level. Private banks along Brickell operated differently. Smaller transaction volumes but higher value clients. Cartel lawyers. Money laundering specialists. Political figures who asked no questions about deposit sources. Damien watched patterns emerge. Same faces. Same schedules. Same vulnerabilities. Titan Security assigned him specific routes for good reasons. Armored car companies couldn't risk drivers learning too much about client operations. Rotation prevented familiarity. Prevented drivers from building relationships that could compromise security. Nobody calculated for photographic memory. Nobody planned for someone recording every detail while appearing completely ordinary. Someone mapping entire financial networks while management saw only reliable equipment operator. 2 years of mental note-taking created something dangerous. Complete understanding of how Miami's underground economy functioned. Which organizations controlled which territories. How money moved between legitimate businesses and criminal enterprises. Where system weaknesses existed. Military intelligence training taught pattern recognition. Civilian employment provided access to patterns worth recognizing. Former Marines learned to identify enemy supply lines. Current armored car drivers learned to identify criminal money flows. Colleagues complained about boring work. Same routes every day. Same clients every week. Same mundane routine without variety or challenge. Damien listened differently. Routine meant predictability. Predictability meant opportunity. After 18 months, fellow drivers started noticing small changes. Longer lunch breaks. More interest in client schedules. Questions about weekend operations and holiday staffing. Curiosity about emergency protocols and backup procedures. Management noticed nothing. Punctual employee with clean record. No complaints from clients. No missing inventory. Model worker deserving no special attention. But underneath surface compliance, something else was developing. Military precision applied to civilian intelligence gathering. Strategic thinking focused on tactical opportunities. Patient observation building toward decisive action. Friday afternoons brought largest cash movements. Weekend operations reduced security staffing. Holiday schedules created predictable gaps in oversight. COVID protocols would soon create unprecedented vulnerabilities. Damien Cross appeared to be just another working person grateful for steady employment. Appearances would prove catastrophically deceptive. Tuesday morning, February 18, 2020. Oceanic Currency Exchange buzzed with unusual activity. Extra security guards. Managers arriving early. Hushed conversations in rapid Spanish behind reinforced glass partitions. Damien wheeled his dolly toward loading bays. Same routine as always. Professional invisibility. Equipment operator focused solely on moving cargo efficiently. Nobody paid attention to furniture that walked. Nikolai Petrov paced near his office, phone pressed against his ear. Voice strained. Agitated gestures cutting through air like distress signals. Words carried farther than intended in marble-walled spaces designed for acoustic privacy. 110 million. All of it. Consolidated by Friday night before federal task force hits weekend operations. Cash bundles waited in neat stacks. Damien loaded methodically, movements automatic while ears processed information that could change everything. Marine training kicked in, mission-critical intelligence required immediate attention regardless of source circumstances. El Fantasma wants European expansion ready by March. Serpiente Syndicate moves all assets through single location during transition window. Serpiente Syndicate. Rafael El Fantasma, Herrera's organization, controlled drug distribution from Tijuana to Miami. Phantom operations. Ghost leadership. Nobody had ever photographed El Fantasma or connected him directly to criminal activity. Law enforcement hunted shadows while real power operated through intermediaries like Petrov. 6 hours maximum exposure. Friday night pickup, Saturday morning transfer to offshore accounts. Esteban coordinates security protocols personally. Esteban Machado. El Fantasma's lieutenant. Known for efficiency and brutality in equal measure. Personal coordination meant maximum importance. Minimal room for error. Zero tolerance for complications. Damien continued loading while mental processors cataloged every detail. $110 million. Single location. 6-hour window. Friday night operation. European expansion timeline. Federal task force pressure creating urgency. Military intelligence analysis identified opportunity patterns. Enemy supply convoys exposed during movement windows. Critical infrastructure vulnerable during transition periods. Maximum value targets accessible during coordination gaps. This conversation revealed something unprecedented. Entire Serpiente syndicate operational funds consolidated in one location during predictable time frame. Cartel money sitting unguarded except for basic security during narrow window between collection and transfer. Petrov finished his call, sweat beading despite air conditioning. Stress levels indicated significance beyond routine operations. Fear suggested consequences for failure extended beyond professional disappointment. Problems with European contacts? Damien asked, maintaining equipment operator persona. Equipment problems. Nothing major. Petrov's dismissive tone carried undertones of panic. But Damien had heard enough. Over following weeks, different conversations filled gaps in operational intelligence. Radio frequencies inadequately secured revealed coordination details. Delivery schedules exposed timing vulnerabilities. Staff rotation patterns identified security weaknesses. Serpiente Syndicate trusted Titan security transport completely. Specific driver requests for sensitive operations. Predictable scheduling for maximum value transfers. Operational security focused on external threats while ignoring internal vulnerabilities. Cartel paranoia created perfect camouflage. Organizations so secretive they couldn't report theft without exposing entire operations. Law enforcement so focused on traditional suspects they'd never consider armored car drivers as criminal masterminds. Military training taught tactical patience. Wait for perfect conditions. Gather complete intelligence before engagement. Strike when enemy capabilities were minimized and escape routes maximized. March 15th represented perfect conditions. COVID-19 lockdowns would empty Miami streets. Skeleton crews would reduce security staffing. Pandemic protocols would create confusion during shift changes. Emergency procedures would provide cover for unusual documentation. But opportunity alone meant nothing without capability. Intelligence gathering shifted into operational planning. Financial network mapping. Security protocol analysis. Escape route development. Contingency preparation for multiple scenarios. Former Marine reconnaissance skills applied to civilian target assessment. Enemy positions identified. Weakness patterns cataloged. Timing windows calculated. Success probability evaluated against risk factors. 2 years of passive observation transformed into active preparation. Equipment operator became predator. Routine job became cover for history's most audacious theft. Would you recognize a $110 million opportunity if it whispered in your ear? If not, subscribe. Because people who miss stories like this are usually ones too scared to admit they wouldn't act. And if you're not subscribing, explain why you're okay staying in shadows. Comments are open. March 10, 2020. Radio static crackled through poorly secured frequencies as Damien monitored cartel communications during routine deliveries. Esteban Machado's voice cut through interference with military precision. All Serpiente funds consolidate Friday night. European transfer window opens Saturday dawn. 6 hours maximum exposure before offshore movement. 6 hours. March 15th. Complete operational funds in single location during narrow vulnerability window. Perfect timing intersected with perfect opportunity in ways no strategist could have planned. COVID-19 had transformed Miami into something unrecognizable. Empty business districts. Skeleton security crews. Modified protocols disrupting established procedures. Chaos masquerading as public health measures created cover for activities that would have been impossible during normal operations. But chaos alone meant nothing without precision execution. Military training emphasized redundancy planning. Primary objectives supported by secondary protocols. Fallback positions prepared for every conceivable complication. Forged documentation required weeks of preparation. Tightened security forms duplicated with surgical accuracy. Emergency pickup authorizations created using insider knowledge of approval processes. Paperwork that would pass cursory inspection during shift changes but couldn't survive detailed scrutiny. Vehicle modifications happened gradually. GPS tracking systems temporarily disabled during maintenance windows. Radio communications rerouted through scrambled frequencies. Cargo space measured for maximum cash bundle capacity. Changes subtle enough to avoid detection during routine inspections. Storage facility preparation demanded equal attention to detail. Hialeah warehouse leased through shell company months in advance. Gold Coast Investments established as legitimate precious metals dealer. Money laundering infrastructure built piece by piece while maintaining plausible business operations. But technical preparation meant nothing without psychological readiness. Crossing lines between legal employment and criminal enterprise. Accepting that success required betraying organizations that trusted him. Understanding that failure meant death from cartel retaliation or life imprisonment from federal prosecution. Sleep became irregular. Appetite diminished. Concentration intensified on operational details while emotional processing shut down protective mechanisms that might interfere with mission execution. Marine conditioning suppressed moral considerations in favor of tactical success. March 12 brought final confirmation. Petrov received updated instructions confirming Friday night consolidation. All Serpiente syndicate assets moving through oceanic currency exchange during 6-hour window before European expansion launch. $110 million sitting unguarded except for basic security. 3 days remaining. 72 hours to finalize preparations. 4,320 minutes until point of no return. Time compressed into millisecond calculations where single mistakes could trigger catastrophic consequences. Shift schedules confirmed skeleton crews during pandemic operations. Security protocols reduced to essential personnel only. Management focused on health safety measures rather than operational security. Perfect conditions for someone who understood both systems and vulnerabilities. Emergency contact lists updated. Escape routes memorized. Contingency plans activated for multiple failure scenarios. Backup documentation prepared for situations requiring alternative explanations. Exit strategies developed for outcomes ranging from immediate discovery to delayed investigation. Weather forecasts confirmed clear conditions. Traffic patterns guaranteed empty streets during evening operations. Banking schedules verified Saturday morning transfer windows. Every variable aligned for maximum success probability. March 15th approached with inevitability of natural disaster. Forces beyond individual control creating conditions for events that would reshape everything. Ordinary Tuesday morning about to become extraordinary criminal history. 47 minutes would determine whether careful planning produced perfect execution or devastating failure. Whether former Marine became criminal mastermind or cautionary tale about ambition exceeding capability. Time had stopped being abstract concept. Countdown measured in heartbeats toward moment when ordinary life ended forever. 7:43 p.m. March 15, 2020. Titan security armored truck rolled through empty Miami streets like military vehicle patrolling abandoned war zone. COVID-19 lockdown had drained life from Brickell Avenue. Office towers stood dark. Traffic lights cycled through colors for nobody. Perfect conditions. Damien's hands remained steady on steering wheel. Marine training suppressed adrenaline responses that could compromise operational precision. Breathing regulated. Heart rate controlled. Mental focus narrowed to mission parameters. 7:51 p.m. Oceanic Currency Exchange Parking Structure. Security guard booth empty except for handwritten note, back in 10 minutes, COVID cleaning protocol. Skeleton crew priorities focused on health safety measures rather than operational security. Emergency pickup authorization paperwork stacked on passenger seat. Forged signatures indistinguishable from authentic management approvals. Documentation that would pass cursory inspection during shift changes but couldn't survive detailed scrutiny. 8:02 p.m. Building entry through employee entrance using legitimate credentials. Hallways echoed with emptiness. Pandemic protocols had reduced evening staff to essential personnel only. Perfect camouflage for unusual activities. Nikolai Petrov's office lights blazed through reinforced glass. Voice strained during phone conversation with Esteban Machado about European transfer timing. Cash bundles waited in secured storage area, stacked with mathematical precision. Emergency pickup from Titan Security, Damien announced, displaying forged documentation. Skeleton crew barely glanced at paperwork. COVID-19 mask concealed facial features while providing legitimate health safety cover. Pandemic paranoia made everyone eager to minimize contact duration. 8:09 p.m. Loading began. Modified cash bundles designed to avoid detection by standard bank counting machines. Cartel innovation that ironically simplified theft procedures. Each bundle weighted precisely. Dimensions calculated for maximum transportation efficiency. $110 million packed into containers small enough for single-person loading operation. Criminal engineering at its finest, created by organizations too secretive to report theft without exposing entire operations. 8:23 p.m. First near-discovery moment. Security supervisor returned early from break, questioned unusual evening pickup schedule. Damien displayed emergency authorization forms with practiced calm. Federal task force raids expected this weekend. Management wants sensitive accounts secured immediately. Truth disguised as cover story. Task force raids were planned. Sensitive accounts needed protection. Perfect explanation that aligned with existing cartel paranoia about law enforcement pressure. 8:31 p.m. Loading continued methodically. Military precision applied to civilian criminal enterprise. Each movement calculated for maximum efficiency. No wasted motion. No unnecessary conversation. Professional invisibility at peak effectiveness. 8:44 p.m. Final cash bundles secured. Cargo area filled to calculated capacity. Documentation signed with forged signatures. Cover story maintained through completion. European transfer confirmed for Saturday morning? Security supervisor asked. Saturday dawn. Offshore accounts ready. Another truth used as misdirection. 8:47 p.m. Vehicle departure through empty parking structure. Miami streets stretched ahead like abandoned movie sets. Pandemic lockdown had created criminals' paradise. No witnesses, no traffic, no complications. But genius lay not in theft execution but in destination choice. Instead of fleeing immediately, Damien drove toward prearranged storage facility in Hialeah. Months of preparation culminating in sophisticated money laundering operation disguised as legitimate precious metals dealership. 9:15 p.m. Hialeah Warehouse. Gold Coast Investments. Loading dock designed for maximum privacy. Security cameras redirected during maintenance procedures. Storage areas prepared for immediate cash processing. 9:30 p.m. Mission completion. $110 million secured in climate-controlled environment. Vehicle returned to normal configuration. Documentation destroyed through industrial shredding equipment. Evidence elimination completed with military thoroughness. 47 minutes. 2,820 seconds. Criminal history made during time frame shorter than typical movie length. Former Marine had executed perfect theft against one of America's most dangerous cartels. But this moment, driving away from oceanic currency exchange with stolen fortune, represented beginning rather than conclusion. Transformation from thief to kingpin required different skills entirely. Money meant nothing without capability to transform it into power. You're already this deep into Heist, and you haven't subscribed? Ask yourself, what are you waiting for? Because if you don't care about missing what comes next, someone else will watch it, learn from it, and leave you behind. March 16, 2020. Dawn broke over Hialeah warehouse where Damien Cross ceased to exist. $110 million in cash bundles surrounded him like building blocks for constructing new identity. Former Marine disappeared into Gold Coast Investments, legitimate precious metals dealer with sophisticated money laundering capabilities. First priority: infrastructure development. Shell companies established across multiple jurisdictions. Delaware corporations. Nevada partnerships. Cayman Islands holdings. Each entity legally separated but operationally connected through Byzantine ownership structures that frustrated financial investigators. Cryptocurrency exchanges provided modern laundering pathways. Bitcoin purchases through legitimate dealers. Ethereum transactions across international platforms. Digital currencies converted back to clean dollars through established financial institutions. Technology replacing traditional Swiss banking for criminal money movement. But Gold Coast Investments required authentic precious metals operations. Bulk gold purchases from established dealers. Silver acquisitions through commodity markets. Legitimate inventory that provided cover for artificial price inflation schemes. Real business activities masking criminal profit processing. Week 3 brought first recruitment success. Isabella Rodriguez possessed credentials that criminals couldn't buy. Former DEA analyst with intimate knowledge of federal investigation procedures. Agency corruption had disgusted her beyond repair. Damien offered purpose aligned with revenge motivations. Federal agents spend careers chasing shadows while real criminals operate in plain sight, Isabella explained during clandestine recruitment meeting. System protects wealth while prosecuting desperation. Her DEA experience provided operational intelligence worth more than money. Investigation patterns. Surveillance techniques. Evidence collection procedures. Insider knowledge that transformed criminal planning from guesswork into precise science. Thomas Tank Washington joined operations during month 4. Navy SEAL dismissed from service after questioning orders in Afghanistan. Military skills without military constraints. Security expertise combined with personal grievances against authority structures that had betrayed his service. Tank's recruitment network accessed dismissed military personnel across multiple specialties. Intelligence analysts. Communications experts. Logistics coordinators. Demolitions specialists. Skills developed at taxpayer expense now available for criminal enterprise. 6 months after theft, Damien had laundered $40 million through precious metals operations. Gold purchased at market rates, sold to international buyers at artificially inflated prices. Excess profit represented clean money available for legitimate investment activities. Remaining $70 million became foundation for criminal organization unlike anything law enforcement had encountered. Technology-focused. Service-oriented. Patient rather than aggressive. Intelligence-driven rather than violence-dependent. While DEA investigators followed traditional cartel patterns, Damien built hybrid organization that operated legitimate businesses alongside illegal activities. Cryptocurrency exchanges. Real estate investments. Commodity trading. International banking relationships. Criminal empire disguised as successful business network. Agent Patricia Kane led federal investigation with assumptions that proved catastrophically wrong. Only cartel insiders could execute such sophisticated theft. Traditional suspects required intensive surveillance. Established criminal organizations deserved primary attention. For 8 months, federal resources focused on known associates of El Fantasma while real perpetrator operated freely under investigative noses. Damien attended business conferences. Joined charitable organizations. Built public persona as successful entrepreneur committed to veteran services. Meanwhile, Serpiente syndicate response created climate of terror that provided perfect camouflage. El Fantasma ordered 12 executions including Nikolai Petrov and 2 Titan security employees. Violence focused attention on cartel retaliation rather than alternative explanations. Witnesses fled Miami or refused cooperation with authorities. Fear suppressed information sharing that might have exposed Damien's activities. Cartel brutality created protective silence around someone who had never resorted to violence. Agent Kane's breakthrough came from unexpected source: financial pattern analysis software that identified unusual precious metals transactions. Gold Coast Investments flagged for purchasing patterns inconsistent with typical dealer behavior. Computer algorithms succeeded where human investigators failed. But Discovery Timeline provided Damien months of operational freedom. $40 million cleaned through legitimate channels. $70 million invested in criminal infrastructure. International networks established across 3 countries. Organization membership expanded to 47 core personnel. By autumn 2020, former armored car driver controlled criminal empire generating revenue exceeding many Fortune 500 companies. Intelligence replaced violence. Strategy conquered territorial ambitions. Patience destroyed traditional criminal hierarchies. Transformation complete. Thief had become Kingpin through methods that redefined modern criminal enterprise. Technology and legitimacy providing camouflage that traditional law enforcement couldn't penetrate. Agent Patricia Kane approached investigations like textbook case studies. 23 years federal experience. Cartel expertise spanning 3 decades. Traditional methodologies that had succeeded against conventional criminal organizations. March 16 morning brought crime scene unlike anything in DEA files. $110 million stolen without violence. No witnesses. No evidence beyond missing money. Professional execution suggesting cartel-level sophistication. Kane's investigation followed established protocols. Cartel theft required cartel connections. Inside access demanded inside personnel. Financial sophistication indicated criminal leadership with international experience. Known associates of El Fantasma received intensive surveillance. Wiretaps monitored communications. Financial records examined for unusual transactions. Traditional suspects subjected to pressure that might reveal information about theft execution. For 8 months, federal resources focused on established criminal networks while real perpetrator operated beyond investigative radar. Surveillance teams tracked movements of cartel lieutenants. Intelligence analysts mapped communications between suspected participants. Financial investigators examined accounts belonging to traditional money laundering operations. Meanwhile, El Fantasma's response created chaos that inadvertently protected Damien. Cartel retaliation targeted anyone with potential knowledge about theft circumstances. 12 executions, including Nikolai Petrov, eliminated key witnesses. 2 Titan security employees murdered for possible involvement. Violence created climate of terror that silenced cooperation with federal authorities. Witnesses fled Miami or refused to provide information that might expose them to cartel revenge. Fear suppressed intelligence gathering that could have identified alternative explanations for theft. Damien benefited from carnage he hadn't created. Cartel brutality focused attention on traditional criminal responses while sophisticated criminal enterprise operated through legitimate business channels. Violence provided perfect camouflage for intelligence-based operations. Kane's frustration mounted as conventional investigation techniques produced no results. Surveillance revealed nothing. Informants provided no useful intelligence. Financial analysis of traditional suspects showed no evidence of sudden wealth acquisition. Department pressure intensified. Media attention demanded progress reports. Political oversight questioned resource allocation for case that seemed unsolvable through standard approaches. Kane faced career consequences if investigation continued producing negative results. Breakthrough came from unexpected source. Financial pattern analysis software identified anomalies in precious metals transactions. Automated systems detected purchasing behaviors inconsistent with typical dealer operations. Gold Coast Investments flagged for review. Computer algorithms succeeded where human investigators failed. Mathematical analysis revealed patterns invisible to conventional surveillance. Technology identified suspicious activities that traditional methods couldn't detect. Kane investigated Gold Coast Investments with fresh perspective. Company established days after theft. Purchasing patterns suggesting money laundering rather than legitimate business operations. Financial relationships with shell companies across multiple jurisdictions. Discovery timeline revealed sophisticated planning that preceded theft by months. Infrastructure development indicating long-term criminal enterprise rather than opportunistic crime. Professional execution suggesting military or intelligence background. Kane realized investigation assumptions had been fundamentally wrong. Not cartel insider with established connections. Not traditional criminal organization with predictable patterns. Something entirely different. Someone who understood law enforcement procedures well enough to avoid detection. Former armored car driver surfaced during background investigation of Titan security personnel. Military intelligence experience. Access to cartel operations through legitimate employment. Photographic memory for details. Perfect profile for someone capable of executing unprecedented theft. But Damien Cross had disappeared after March 15th. Employment records showed resignation for family emergency. Address belonged to vacant apartment. Contact information led to disconnected phone services. Person had vanished completely from official documentation. Kane faced new reality. Investigation target possessed skills that exceeded federal capabilities. Someone who understood surveillance techniques. Someone who could disappear while building criminal empire. Someone who had transformed theft into ongoing criminal enterprise. Predator had become prey, but prey proved more dangerous than predator. What would you do if you were Agent Kane? More importantly, what would you miss if you weren't here to find out how it ends? If you're still not subscribed, drop into comments and explain why you're okay missing biggest takedown story you've never heard of. By 2021, Cross Syndicate operations spanned from Key West to Jacksonville, Atlanta to Houston, with international networks reaching into European and South American markets. What began as stolen cartel money had evolved into criminal empire generating $50 million annually in clean profits. 12 shell companies managed legitimate business operations while coordinating illegal activities. Delaware corporations handled cryptocurrency exchanges. Nevada partnerships operated real estate investments. Cayman Islands holdings processed international banking relationships. Legal structures so complex that financial investigators required months to trace single transactions. 47 core personnel included former law enforcement officers, military specialists, and financial experts who brought professional capabilities that traditional criminal organizations couldn't match. Intelligence analysts from various agencies. Communications specialists with security clearances. Logistics coordinators experienced in international operations. But genius lay not in traditional territorial control but in service-based criminal consulting. Cross Syndicate provided money laundering services to smaller cartels. Cryptocurrency processing for international drug trafficking. Logistics coordination for organizations lacking sophisticated infrastructure. Criminal enterprise that profited from chaos without creating chaos. No turf wars meant no violence. No territorial disputes meant no law enforcement attention. Service contracts replaced confrontational relationships. Intelligence replaced intimidation. Professional efficiency attracted clients seeking reliable criminal services. Legitimate charitable foundations provided perfect cover while serving genuine purposes. Organizations supporting veteran communities received substantial funding. Law enforcement family assistance programs operated with authentic humanitarian goals. Public service creating social networks within agencies actively hunting cross-syndicate leadership. Damien attended police charity events. Donated equipment to military veteran programs. Built public persona as successful businessman committed to supporting those who served their country. Charitable activities provided access to social circles that included active federal agents. Masterstroke required psychological sophistication that traditional criminals couldn't comprehend. Building genuine relationships with people hunting him. Providing real assistance to families of agents investigating his organization. Charity work that created protective camouflage while serving authentic humanitarian purposes. Private airfield in Everglades handled international transportation needs. 3 luxury yachts provided mobile meeting facilities. Safehouse networks from Miami to New Orleans supported operational security. Physical infrastructure rivaling capabilities of established cartels. But technology distinguished Cross Syndicate from traditional criminal organizations. advanced encryption for communications, blockchain systems for financial transactions, artificial intelligence for pattern analysis that avoided detection by law enforcement surveillance, criminal enterprise operating with efficiency that exceeded many Fortune 500 companies, drug distribution networks operated through established channels without direct involvement in street-level violence. Money laundering services attracted international clients seeking sophisticated financial processing. Logistics coordination provided support for criminal organizations lacking professional infrastructure. Cross Syndicate had surpassed Serpiente Cartel in annual revenue while maintaining operational security that frustrated federal investigators. Intelligence-based organization that provided services rather than controlling territories. Technology and legitimacy replacing violence and intimidation. El Fantasma's traditional cartel methods seemed primitive compared to hybrid organization that operated legitimate businesses alongside criminal activities. Violence attracted attention. Intelligence avoided attention. Traditional territorial control created enemies. Service contracts created clients. Former armored car driver now controlled criminal empire that redefined modern organized crime. Military intelligence applied to civilian criminal enterprise. Strategic thinking that transformed stolen money into ongoing criminal dynasty. Law enforcement agencies hunted ghost who had become king. Someone who proved that intelligence could triumph over both government resources and cartel violence. Criminal mastermind who built empire from shadows while operating in plain sight. Damien Cross owned nothing directly. Properties belonged to shell companies managed by intermediaries who never met him personally. Vehicles registered to corporations controlled by other corporations. Financial accounts accessible through layers of legal entities that frustrated asset forfeiture attempts. Communication systems changed monthly. Encrypted phones discarded after single conversations. Email accounts created and deleted within days. Meeting locations selected randomly using algorithms that prevented pattern recognition. Operational security that exceeded federal agency protocols. Network of intermediaries operated without knowing their ultimate employer. Business managers believing they worked for legitimate investment firms. Security personnel thinking they protected cryptocurrency exchanges. Logistics coordinators assuming they served international trade companies. Ghost protocol required psychological manipulation that traditional criminals couldn't comprehend. People working enthusiastically for organization they didn't know existed. Legitimate employees advancing criminal objectives while maintaining plausible deniability about illegal activities. But masterstroke involved charitable foundations supporting families of fallen law enforcement officers. Organizations providing genuine assistance to widows and children of agents killed in line of duty. Authentic humanitarian work that created emotional protection against investigation efforts. Federal agents investigating Cross Syndicate discovered their own families receiving assistance from charitable organizations linked to investigation target. Children's college scholarships funded by criminal profits. Mortgage payments covered during financial emergencies. Medical expenses paid through foundations established by person they hunted. Moral complexity that paralyzed traditional law enforcement approaches. How could agents aggressively pursue someone providing genuine assistance to their colleagues' families? How could investigation continue when target demonstrated authentic concern for law enforcement welfare? Agent Patricia Kane faced impossible situation. Evidence suggested Damien Cross controlled criminal empire worth millions. Financial analysis confirmed illegal money laundering activities. Intelligence reports documented international criminal relationships. But Kane's own department received substantial donations from cross-affiliated charitable foundations. Training equipment purchased through grants. Family assistance programs funded by organizations that traced back to investigation target. Emotional conflicts that compromised professional objectivity. Meanwhile, El Fantasma's hunt intensified through different methods. Cartel violence ignored legal considerations that restricted federal investigations. Torture extracted information from anyone with potential knowledge about theft circumstances. Brutality that eventually identified former armored car driver as likely perpetrator. Serpiente Syndicate resources focused on locating Damien Cross through criminal networks rather than official channels. Street informants. Corrupt officials. International contacts willing to ignore legal procedures for sufficient compensation. criminal investigation proceeding parallel to federal efforts. Damien operated with awareness that multiple hunters tracked him through different approaches. Federal agents constrained by legal procedures. Cartel assassins unconstrained by moral considerations. Survival required strategies that neutralized both threats simultaneously. Ghost Protocol provided protection against law enforcement through legal complexity and charitable goodwill. But cartel violence required different defensive measures. Military training and professional security capabilities that could respond to physical threats with lethal efficiency. Former armored car driver had become invisible Kingpin who remained untouchable through methods that redefined criminal operational security. Intelligence and legitimacy providing camouflage that frustrated both government resources and cartel revenge. Today, while El Fantasma's assassins continue hunting through criminal underworld and Agent Kane's task force follows digital trails through maze of shell companies, Damien Cross remains free. Wealthy beyond imagination. Feared by organizations that once considered him furniture. Man who drove armored trucks for minimum wage now controls networks spanning 3 countries, generating $50 million annually in illegal profits. Criminal empire built from stolen cartel money, sustained through intelligence and strategic thinking that traditional law enforcement can't comprehend. But this story offers lessons beyond criminal success. Patterns that apply to legitimate ambitions. Strategies that reveal how extraordinary achievements emerge from ordinary circumstances. First lesson: observation and patience. Damien spent 2 years watching, learning, mapping financial networks while appearing completely ordinary. Silent preparation that created opportunity when perfect conditions aligned. Most people rush toward goals. Smart people wait for right moments. Second lesson: strategic thinking conquers brute force. Violence attracts attention. Intelligence avoids attention. El Fantasma's brutal methods seem primitive compared to sophisticated operations that profit from chaos without creating chaos. Strategy beats strength every time. Third lesson: adaptability transforms crises into opportunities. COVID-19 lockdown created perfect cover for activities impossible during normal operations. While others panicked about pandemic disruptions, Damien recognized unprecedented advantages. Crisis reveals character and capability. Fourth lesson: legitimate fronts provide perfect camouflage. Gold Coast Investments operated real business while processing criminal profits. Charitable foundations served authentic purposes while creating protective relationships. Criminals hide in plain sight through genuine activities. Fifth lesson: never underestimate based on circumstances. Armored car driver seemed incapable of sophisticated criminal enterprise. Minimum wage employee appeared to lack resources for complex operations. Appearances deceive when intelligence and determination align with opportunity. These lessons apply beyond criminal activities. Business success requires similar capabilities. Observation, strategy, adaptability, legitimacy. Recognition that extraordinary achievements often emerge from ordinary circumstances when preparation meets opportunity. Damien Cross proved that modern era rewards intelligence over violence, strategy over strength, patience over impulsiveness. Military training applied to civilian objectives. Professional planning executed with surgical precision. Stolen money transformed into sustainable criminal dynasty. But remember, this story continues. Agent Kane develops new investigative approaches. El Fantasma expands hunting operations. Damien builds more sophisticated defensive measures. Cat-and-mouse game between intelligence and revenge, strategy and violence, law and crime. If you're still not subscribed after this, ask yourself one thing. What kind of person ignores rise of criminal empire for minimum wage job? If you're that person, say it proudly in comments. Rest of you, you know what to do. Hit subscribe before next mastermind vanishes into legend. Because remember, Damien Cross is still out there, and Agent Kane is still hunting. This story isn't over.